Medyaked Londra'nın sunduğu Brands and Trends programının ikinci oturumuna hoş geldiniz. Bu sahnede bu hafta belki de en çok konuştuğumuz konulardan biri büyüme oldu. Dünyanın hemen hemen her ülkesinde ekonomilerin bir dönem kapatıldığı bu eşi benzeri olmayan senede markalar bütün bu zorluklara rağmen büyüyebilir mi? Wavelength Marketing'in kurucusu Dr. Darren Coleman bize anlatacak.
So Selin, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Hi there, my name's Darren Coleman. I'm the founder and managing consultant of UK-based branding agency Wavelength Marketing. I'm also the honorary counsel for Lithuania in my hometown of Birmingham. So I'm delighted to be here with you today, albeit virtually, to talk about brands as a platform for growth. So I want to provide some practical advice on how you can use your brand as a platform to get your COVID recovery right. So, Wavelength, we specialize in working with brands and helping them drive growth and retain relevance through brand experiences. And we're fortunate enough to have clients across Europe, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So what would I like to achieve today? Well, there's a small number of objectives that I've set myself for this keynote. First, I want to help you make the business case for brand-driven growth at your organization. Because if you are going to make the business case, you need to be able to put the point across to the C-suite. And this primarily relates to the importance of brands and performance, and brands and emotion, and how emotion itself drives performance. So I spend a lot of my time trying to convince CFOs and CEOs to spend more money on brand. So the first part of my talk is enabled to help you to do the same. In the second part of the talk, I want to provide some practical advice that will enable you to deliver scalable brand-driven growth. That will be through a practical management tool that we use, the Brand-Driven Growth Blueprint. And I want to share a number of case studies from around the globe to illustrate those points. But ultimately, I want you to believe in brands, growth, and the role that brands can play in your COVID-19 recovery. So in terms of the context, the world has been turned upside down and inside out in the past year. If we'd have been here this time last year, it would have been impossible to imagine the situation that the world is in now. So the landscape has changed in many ways, but many of the principles of building brands apply. So I want to talk first about the business case for brand-driven growth and to provide you with some data that will help you to make the business case for brands with the senior management and the C-suite. So now I want to talk about how brands drive growth. So this chart makes a number of interesting points that will obtain the interest of those in the C-suite. First, it shows the growth in the S&P 500 since 1975. But more interestingly, it shows the relative importance of intangible assets as a part of S&P 500 value. And we can see that in 2018, approximately 84% of value that resided in the S&P 500 resided in intangible assets. This includes brands and other forms of intellectual property. This chart shows how powerful brands drive performance. So we can see that when we had the last global recession, 2008, 2009, yes, there was a dip in performance for powerful brands, but also across a number of indices, such as the S&P and the MSCI. But what we can see is that at times of uncertainty and an economic decline, smart brands invest. And we can see how the performance of the Brandsy top 10 powerful brands and the strong brand portfolio outperform the S&P and the MSCI. So this chart paints a powerful picture. Powerful brands are investing in brand marketing at this time because they'll be well placed for the upturn if and when it comes. A lot of organizations have a regrettable focus on short-term ROI or ROMI marketing. And this extensive study from Binet and Field, the long and the short of it, shows how focusing primarily on short-term ROI-driven or ROMI-driven brand activations and performance marketing can be bad news. We can see that short-termism boosts return on marketing investment, but not long-term profit growth. I'd encourage you to take a good look at the research of Binet and Field because it provides a number of valuable data points that will help you to convince the C-suite of investing in brands as a platform for growth. And this is a quote here from the director of the IPA here in the UK. And the analysis of the IPA data bank, which contains quantitative data from over 1,500 advertising and marketing case studies, spans 40 years. And it shows that brand building lies at the heart of sustainable business growth. So that's the first part of the talk. Hopefully you've got some valuable, robust data points there that you can share with the C-suite to get their interest and demonstrate from a high level the business case for investing in brands and that brands drive performance. Now I want to talk about why emotions win, because by definition, brands are emotional. So you need to understand the role that emotion plays in driving brand-driven growth. So emotion's important because as humans, it's the emotion we feel that is the primary driver of human choice. And this actually is nothing new. It's been highlighted in ancient philosophical texts by Ming-Zhu, Antonio Damasio, and more recently, Nobel laureates such as Daniel Kahneman, and Daniel Early. So the point is that the primary driver of human choice is the emotion we feel, but then we frequently justify emotional decisions rationally. So for example, darling, I've just spent $500,000 on a Ferrari, but it will become a collector's item. Sweetheart, I've just spent $10,000 on some Jimmy Choo shoes, but they'll last me several seasons. At a functional, tangible level, you have to be mad to spend $500 on a car or $10,000 on some shoes, but it's the emotion that's the primary driver of choice. But then we have to justify that primarily emotionally driven decision in rational and functional terms. And that's why emotion's so powerful, because it's the primary driver of choice. And this data from Forrester bears out that point. It shows the role of thinking and feeling on a number of performance outcomes: purchase intention, loyalty, and advocacy. And the data here from Forrester shows that what you think and what you feel have a positive and statistically significant effect on all three performance metrics, but critically, how you feel influences performance to a magnitude of 1.5 times over what you think. So again, this indicates the importance of emotions that you feel when it comes to driving key brand performance metrics. B2B quite frequently is associated with primarily functional and rational decision-making processes, but more recent research is highlighting how that is simply not true. So this data from the IPA data bank, spanning several decades, highlights how emotional campaigns outperform primarily rational and functional campaigns in the B2B space.
Cognitive neuroscientists have studied why this is the case. When looking at the brain, researchers found that the amygdala, a part of the brain that is important for processing emotion, encourages other parts of the brain to store memories. More specifically, it kicks into gear the hippocampus, which is mostly important when you are first making memories, and the prefrontal cortex, which is important for working memory and decision-making. That's how emotions make your memory more likely to stick.
So there we can see that emotions make memories stick. And that's a key factor when it comes to salience and making sure that brands are top of mind when it comes to consumers or other stakeholders making decisions. So the point here is that emotion is the primary driver. It's the engine of the brain. And this is why brands are so powerful, because brands operate in the emotional space. So far, we've looked at factors about performance and emotion in the context of brand-driven growth and the business case. These are tools and data points that I use on a regular basis with clients, so I hope you find them useful when it comes to putting forward your business case for brand-driven growth at your organization. Now I'd like to turn my attention to helping you deliver scalable brand-driven growth. So the brand-driven growth blueprint is a practical management tool that we use extensively with clients around the world. It comprises of a number of sequential yet iterative steps. So the first step is to understand and align your brand-driven growth aspirations with corporate objectives. So if corporate objectives are around share, sales, profit margins, you need to ensure that your brand objectives align with those, or you'll be doomed from day one. Next, you need to consider three areas almost simultaneously. So you need to consider the target customer. Who are they? Where do they go? What do they do? What emotions drive their choice? What jobs are they trying to get done? What problems are they trying to solve in their life? Then you can visualize them in tangible and real terms as a human. Next, you need to consider your brand as a platform, an intangible asset that has the potential to drive growth. So this is where intangible assets such as your values, essence, personality, and positioning come into play. But you need to think about the extent to which your brand connects with your target customers. So if your values for your brand are to be caring, loving, gentle, and sincere, you need to consider how relevant they are to your target customers. So if your target customer is characterized by values that are caring, loving, gentle, and sincere, your brand will be relevant and resonate. If it's not, they'll disconnect. Next, you need to think about the products and experiences that you are going to take to market, or the categories that you may move into or look to grow. And the point here is that the products or experiences that you take to market need to be on brand. So if your brand values are to be caring, loving, gentle, and sincere, then the products and the experiences that you take to market need to embody those values. So if you are sincere, your customer services staff need to do what they say, for example. But what we can see here is the brand is the platform for driving growth, and it's the glue that binds. It connects with the customers, but it also drives your product and experiential roadmap. So it acts as a common denominator that binds your target customers to your brand, but also informs and guides your product and experiential roadmaps. And the whole process of brand-driven growth needs to be underpinned by measurement. So for example, penetration, salience, market share, your ability to charge price premiums. So let me give you some examples to show how this plays out in practice. And we'll focus on the target customer, brand, and product experience, because in these examples, I haven't been privy to objectives or measurement. So Baby Shop is a retailer with extensive operations in a number of markets across the Middle East and Asia Pac. And their positioning is around the best choice at the right moment. And they've delivered on that positioning in a number of ways. So for example, they have the Baby Expert, which enables early mums and early fathers to get expert advice on products that are relevant at key moments in a baby's life. They also have in-store Baby Expert experiences where parents can obtain expert advice. Another great way to deliver the best choice at the right moment. Also, their logistics is tightly integrated with RFID. This ensures they've got the right product at the right moment in store when customers are looking at it. These are just three simple examples of how the Baby Shop has executed on its brand positioning of best choice at the right moment with aplomb. Disney Their brand essence is all about fun family entertainment. They've got amusement parks, they've got toys and they license through toys. They've got a cruise ship going around the Caribbean. They've got content with Disney, Pixar, Marvel, etc. They've even started licensing their brand through Gucci for $400 t-shirts. So these are all about fun family entertainment. But there's no reason why, if Disney wanted to, couldn't move into the family restaurant space, similar to Denny's, for example. So imagine the scenario. You walk into the restaurant and maybe Mickey Mouse greets you, and then maybe Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs take your order, and then maybe Bugs Bunny provides you with your bill and escorts you out the restaurant, naturally via some toys. But the experience would be all around fun family entertainment. And that's another way that Disney could possibly look to grow through its brand essence. Peloton is a very interesting example. So they've grown quickly during times of COVID-19 with high-end products that are all about world-class at-home fitness. So they have exercise bikes, and more recently they've extended into new product ranges. But what's particularly interesting about Peloton is around this time last year, they went to market with a fairly demeaning and disparaging campaign that was quite unfortunately stereotypical when it came to women and the role that women play in the home. And you can see it had a small effect on the stock. But since that time, the stock for Peloton has gone upwards and upwards and upwards. And they've used their brand as a platform, the brand essence, world-class at-home entertainment, to launch content through its app. Now they've moved into the treads. They've got the Tread Plus, and they've also launched the Bike Plus. These all fit perfectly with world-class at-home fitness. So they've used their brand, and specifically their brand essence, as a platform to drive growth during times of COVID-19. But you can grow through partnerships, and we can see here with Red Bull and GoPro. So let's assume their brand personality is about an adventure-seeking adrenaline junkie. Well, they've done stratospheric PR stunts with people jumping out of things that are close to the stratosphere. They've got content partnerships, but it's a great fit for the two brands. So they complement each other, but they don't cannibalize each other. So there's a symbiotic relationship. There's a synergy between the two brands. And it's pretty much a marriage made in heaven, because they can use GoPro to capture the experiences that Red Bull are delivering. But brands are using their values and other facets of their brands for partnerships in different ways. So, for example, Procter & Gamble is partnering, for example, here with Queen Latifah to show that they care and they believe in inclusive content and film production. So they've started to support female directors. And this was a great fit for P&G values, which champion diversity and inclusion. So it's not just about using your brand as a platform to launch products and experiences in new or existing markets, but you can also use your brand as a platform to drive growth through partnerships, assuming that those brands fit. So let's look at how this plays out in summary. So we've focused on the idea of the target customer brand and product experiences within the brand-driven growth blueprint. So the Baby Shop was all about best choice at the right moment. So that's why it could deliver the baby expert through chat, online, but also using RFID. It was a perfect fit and a wonderful execution of that part of their brand positioning. Peloton, the brand essence, was all about world-class at-home fitness. So that's how they can grow their brand through content and launching new products such as the Bike Plus, Tread, and Tread Plus. Disney's all about family fun entertainment. So yes, they've got their classical markets of theme parks, toys, cruise ships, etc. But there's no reason why they couldn't consider using their brand as a platform to drive growth in family restaurants, for example. And then Red Bull was an example of how brands can partner to drive growth. But the reason that Red Bull and GoPro can partner was because their brand personalities can fit together. They complement each other. They don't cannibalize each other. And that's why their brands are such a powerful platform for partnership growth. And then we looked at Procter & Gamble, how they've used their brand as a platform to drive growth through partnering with causes that they believe in. And one of the causes was diversity and inclusion. And that's why they've partnered with female film producers such as Queen Latifah. Great fit for the P&G brand. But if these brands weren't clear on what constitutes their brand, they wouldn't know who their target customer is and assess the relevance of the brand to the target customers, but also how they can launch products, services, experiences, or move into new markets and partner with brands that are relevant to their brand. And that's why brand-driven growth can be so powerful. So I set myself a couple of objectives when we started off. I wanted to make the business case for brand-driven growth. And we've looked at how brands drive performance through various indices, driving choice, etc. And we looked at how brands are primarily emotional, and how emotions drive choice. So the first part was helping you to go to the C-suite or your senior management team to make the business case for brand. And numbers talk in the C-suite. And then the second part of this keynote, I wanted to outline how you can deliver scalable brand-driven growth. And I used some examples. They aren't our clients because it feels a bit rude to use our own clients. But we looked at a number of clients and how they could have used the brand-driven growth blueprint to drive growth during times of COVID-19. But ultimately, I want you to believe in brands' growth and your COVID recovery. I've provided a post on LinkedIn here if you want to take a look at this link and provide some more detailed analysis and examples and tools and templates for how you can win through brand-driven growth during times of COVID-19. So I hope you find it useful. So that's it. Thank you. Take care and keep in touch. They're my contact details. I'd be very happy to hear from you. I think we've got time for some questions, and maybe the best question, I'll be happy to send you a soft copy of my book.
Thanks so much, Darren. It's so weird to do this way because we've been talking about this for a year and always planned on having it in person, but I thought this was still very lovely. So thank you for being with us today. We have some questions from the audience. I first would like to answer. Someone asked if they could have the presentation. All of the sessions are going to be available on demand for view beginning from next week, so you can watch them over and over and over again as much as you want. Moving on, you talked about the importance of long-term brand building efforts, and it's definitely something that we discuss as an industry, especially looking at the studies done by Binay and Field. But in countries like Turkey, where it's a bit more difficult to make long-term plans due to economic and political instability, how can we encourage brands to commit to long-term brand building?
Yeah, so you're right to cite the research of Binay and Field. So it's a case of finding a balance between long-term brand building and short-term brand activation, and they're not actually mutually exclusive. So initially, there was a general idea that 60% of budget should go into long-term brand building, and then about 40% into short-term and brand activations. But the more recent research has showed that's slightly more nuanced. So depending on the market that you're in, the sector that you're in, I would advise you to either tone up the brand or tone down the brand investment. That's the first point I'd make. The second point I would make is we've worked in some volatile markets, I would say. Markets like Palestine come to mind, and we've worked with telecoms brands there and people like that. And the principles apply. You need to get the C-suite on side and get them to understand brands are an intangible asset that make money it can be a slower burn. But when you show them the science behind brands, in terms of brands drive financial performance, and that emotion drives financial performance, and that's important because brands are emotional. Based on my experience, the C-suite tends to come around, but I absolutely understand you need to get the short-term wins through brand activation. But those brand activations need to be delivered in a way that fits with your brand. And that's why brand response campaigns are so powerful, because there's an overarching idea, but the activation, the short-term activations, fit within the scope of the brand, the long-term strategy. So go for the short-term activations, yes, but make sure they're fitting within the parameters and the scope of the big, broader long-term brand picture. But check out Binet and Field's effectiveness in context work. It's fantastic, and that will help you get the C-suite on side. Good luck.
An audience member asks, Darren, how did P&G example drive growth in terms of numbers?
So they would have been going through share. Yeah. Professor Byron Sharp's work from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute in Australia has been incredibly influential. So it's highly likely that P&G would have been looking at metrics such as share and distinctiveness, because Professor Byron Sharp's work has been incredibly influential, not only in FMCG, but a variety of sectors. So they'd be using, I'll be very surprised if they're not using metrics like share and distinctiveness as metrics that show growth. More recently, there's been some data coming out from Les Binet about share of search, which is about the amount of search that you are sharing online. It's early days for that, but it's showing that it does have good predictive capabilities for market share, which in turn drives financial performance. So my suspicion is that the clever people at Procter & Gamble will be using those type of metrics in addition to a variety of other brand and financial metrics.
Lovely, thank you. Another audience member asks, how do you integrate brand-driven growth into corporate portfolio strategies in multi-business companies?
Yeah, good question. So that's about brand architecture. So you need to make a decision about how your brands relate together. So if the values of your brand are sitting with the corporate brand, great. They can act like parents and a child. And then you can use your master brand as an endorser. For example, Johnson & Johnson do this, Unilever do this. Hotel groups such as Holiday Inn do this, Marriott do this. But if you're looking to drive growth through new products and experiences, or move into new markets that don't fit with your existing brand portfolio, then you've got two choices. One, don't launch those brands, or secondly, build new brands. And this is why Lexus was a new brand for Toyota, because they realized they couldn't take the Toyota brand into the premium space. So you need to look at brand architecture and consider your brand as a family, and see whether your strategic brand plans and the growth aspirations that you've got fit within the scope of existing and your master brand and corporate brand. And the good news is they may. So you've got the platform for driving growth, but it may be a little bit uncomfortable, because you may actually realize that there are some weaknesses with existing brands that you hadn't realized were there until you start to scrutinize your brands far more carefully. And my advice in that situation is do less well. So if you're starting to notice cracks in other brands, put the brakes on, stop, look at what you've got, and make sure that you're happy with what you've got, and that those brands are solid, and that they connect with each other, and that they connect with your master brand before adding more and more brands, because that will just bring additional confusion and cost. Good question.
I think we have time for one final question. An audience member would like you to clarify what you mean when you say, short-term brand activations.
Yeah, so short-term brand activations are things like email campaigns to say, go here, buy this, buy one, get one free, sign up, get this coupon, go in store, buy a shirt and get a tie free, that type of thing. So direct response campaigns where you would be able to follow very clearly the line of sight between either above or below the line campaign activity and then see what that brings back in terms of sales. That's short-term brand activation.
Amazing. Always a pleasure, Darren. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you. All the best for the rest of the week. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.